Hooligans, my co-host Tim with the pink headphones. I love it, man.
Woo!
And the
What's
suit.
up, guys?
What's going on, man? We
How
have
you
a
doing,
very
buddy?
we've got a very, very special guest today. My dad. Happy belated Father's Day.
Thank you very much.
This is going to be awesome because we've known each other since Tim and I were 5. My dad actually coached both of us in soccer, and what my dad always used to say, Tim?
We're burning daylight, gentlemen.
And we're burning daylight, boys.
So we go way back, and I wanted to have my dad on because we're going to switch gears a little bit with the hoops talk, and we're going to go in the Wayback Machine. We're going to talk some 90s and 80s Bulls, Dynasty Bulls, Jordan Bulls, and the second thing I want to get into with him is interesting because he's kind of tuned out the NBA recently, and I think he has some legitimate reasons as to why, because Tim and I share those same reasons. The difference is we both grew up with the sport. So I think we still have an attachment to it. So let's just start off with like Jordan stuff. Like, what do you remember when the Bulls drafted him? Because we were born in 87, 88. So we weren't alive when he was drafted. We didn't get to see him. So what do you remember about Jordan when he first came into the league and kind of that entire ethos and mythos of how his career and his story arc started?
Yeah, well, I forget how old I was. I was a lot younger than I am now. But when he was drafted, I remember David Stern going to the podium and he announced his name. And I said, "Who is he?" I didn't know who he was, actually. And there was not much of a reaction because nobody really knew the potential of this guy and what he could do. And actually, the magic he had in college, maybe a lot of people in Chicago weren't paying too much attention to it or anything like that. And I think Sam Bowie was in that draft.
Yep.
Yeah, he got drafted number 2, and Jordan was 3, I think.
Exactly, man. And I remember a lot of people, including myself, going, Bowie, come on, we need a big guy, Bowie. And then Jordan was drafted, and we're going, really? Kind of situation. And it was a who knew. I don't think Rod Thorne, who drafted him at the time, it wasn't Jerry Krause. It was Rod Thorne, knew the magic that he had. He had just drafted. I think that his college numbers were very good. I think he proved himself in college, looking back now, as a clutch player who wanted the ball at the end of a game. But I believe Worthy was on his college team, James Worthy. So you had a star-packed team, actually, for North Carolina.
I think Sam Perkins, too. Sam Perkins was on his team as well. Yeah.
Good point, man. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So you've got these alphas on this team, and maybe Jordan kind of allowed the others to shine, you might say. I don't know. But you've got a lot of star power there.
So I've got something that's interesting because I heard a story about Rod Thorne in the first practice Michael Jordan had with the Bulls. Somebody came up to Rod Thorne because Jordan obliterated everybody. Everybody was like Superman on the court, right? And somebody came up to Rod Thorne and said, "Hey, you didn't blow the pick this time, did you?" I just pulled up an article, okay? Listen to these quotes about the Bulls didn't want to draft Jordan. They wanted Bowie, just like you said. "We wish he were 7 feet, but he isn't," said Bulls general manager Rod Thorne. Sigh. "There just wasn't a center available, so what can you do? He's only 6'5", who must use a different yardstick than Dean Smith." Let's see what else I got here. "When you only win 55 games in 2 years, you don't get well all at once. Look, when Isaiah Thomas here we go. Jordan isn't going to turn this franchise around. I wouldn't ask him to. I wouldn't put that kind of pressure on him." All right, so I've got
talk about some motivation coming out of the
right?
heat,
Right? Like here's my thing, and people have disagreed with me on this. Jordan was never supposed to be this good. Jordan was never. He was in the Dominique mold of scorer. Does he make his teammates better? Hakeem went 1. Great career Hall of Famer. Bowie went 2. A lot of that was because that was where the NBA was going. But Jordan was a high flyer. He wasn't supposed to evolve and adapt and master the game like he did. Yeah. That's what intrigues me the most about who he is. Like, he had the talent, yeah, but he didn't have like LeBron James toolbox. He's a scrawny, athletic kid when he came in, and he evolved himself into the greatest player of all time. That's what blows my mind about him. And that quote kind of
right.
Rod Thorne didn't even think he was going to be the GOAT.
Tony, how long did it take? How long did it take for Chicago and in Chicago Bulls fans to catch on, to how really special he was? Was it his first season, or?
I'll tell you what, it was early in his first season. I mean, he was showing the rest of the league things that they hadn't seen before. And the fact that he was put in a situation where he did not have a lot of star power around him. So it was almost allowing him to be a general on the court without having these guys, these stars, Perkins and Worthy, maybe saying, feed me the ball. I got to have the ball. Because they were superstars, man. Those guys, I mean, in their own right, are Hall of Fame players themselves. So maybe this was the moment for him, and he definitely landed on the right team. And there's a story about it that there was nobody to pick him up at the airport when he arrived in Chicago.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. So he flagged down either, I forget whether it was a limo or it was a taxi driver. And the taxi driver picked him up and brought him, to the Bulls facilities. And that taxi driver or limo driver, I forget which one it was, lifelong friends with Jordan.
I think I've heard that story. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how much they respected him initially. But
I mean,
boy, did they think
you look at like the 86, 87 Bulls, and there is, very little talent on this team. You look at it like Dave Corzine, like he was probably the best player on the team. Then you got Brad Sellers and
oh my God, Brad Sellers, out of Ohio State.
Here, I'm gonna show you guys something real quick. All right, okay. Here's that story. Michael Jordan's best friend is a limo driver who picked him up when he arrived for the first time in Chicago. Here, if you can see that on your screen right now. 1984. That's crazy, right? Like,
isn't that nuts?
They didn't even send him like a limo driver.
Yes. Yes.
Kohler, and I think he's still friends with him. He's still friends with him to this day, I believe. I still think he's very good
exactly
friends with him.
Right.
So that's just absolutely nuts.
Another player on that team was Charles Oakley, which he got.
Oh, the oak tree, we used to call him. Oh my gosh, a guy that outplayed his, what do I want to say, his athletic ability. Tough as nails, an enforcer, extremely impressive, rebounding machine. I always respected Charles Oakley. He was a fantastic player.
You'd never want to get into a fight with him either. I promise you.
I agree, man.
Well, Oakley is known as like Jordan's bodyguard in a lot of sense, even though he was traded to the Knicks. And Jordan was really pissed off when that happened. Like, they're still tight. And Oakley and Jordan, really good friends still, and it's kind of like Oakley was his protector, and it's still that of sorts. I always thought that was an interesting dynamic between those two. And man, I wish we've got highlights. We can go to YouTube. Like, Tim and I think, understand Jordan is the greatest player of all time, and we know a lot about him, but still kind of feel like we got cheated because we didn't get to actually watch him. Like, my first memory, and I'll let Tim go on this too, my first memory of Jordan, I think, that I remember back to was when he came back. I had to have been about 8 years old when he came back from retirement against the Pacers on NBC. He was wearing 45 at what the hell was the Pacers arena called? Remember what it was called? Not the Market.
Wow, that's a good question.
I forget what, but the old Pacers Stadium. He came back and he kicked their ass. That's my first memory of Jordan that I can harken back to. I don't know about you, Tim, but that's the first thing I can remember about him, just like watching a game of him.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? In what was that, 94, 95? The finals, I think that year it was the Knicks against the Rockets or something like that. If I recall correctly, or it was like, or the Magic against the Rockets. I just remember like growing up, Jordan being in the finals like every single year, like as a small child, and asking my mom why the Bulls weren't in the finals that year. And then shortly after, I think the OJ chase came on, like during that, which was even crazier. But I just remember that summer, like it was just insane to see him, like, because he still had commercials. He still had a marketing deal, and he had commercials about playing baseball and everything. So like the 95, 96 season came along. I was probably in, I don't know, third, fourth grade, and just like watching practically every single game with my brother that year. Just, just after he came back and everything, he really just, he tried to put the Bulls organization on his back, and he just wasn't quite ready, I don't think. But that's why he locked himself in the gym the next season and just came out an absolute monster. But from what I remember, like the 97, 98 season, I remember that vividly, where Pippen went down early in the season and he practically had to do everything himself. Ron Harper was a shell of himself. Tony Kukoc was coming off the bench.
Wow.
Rodman was trying to get involved offensively, and it was like, calm down here, buddy, do what you can do. But yeah, no, the 96, 97 season was what I remember the most.
Yeah, my most vivid memory of Jordan coming into his own and people starting to see the magic in this guy. I hate to use the term magic because of LA, but was against the Celtics. And the Celtics, I'm telling you, at that time were a dynasty, as were the Lakers. They usually ended up in the finals all the time. And then Detroit was always knocking on the door at that time. And what he did to Bird in that game where he crossed him over through the legs, Bird just couldn't. It was like he didn't know what to do. He hadn't seen it before. And it was startling, absolutely startling what Jordan did there. And I think the magic of Jordan, too, is while he's not as athletic as LeBron, given his court savvy, he's like a great chess player to me. He's always thinking 3 moves ahead of everybody else, which made him great. I mean, it made him his anticipation, especially on defense too. People forget he was a great defender on top of it. And greatest all-around player I've ever seen, and I've seen plenty of players in my history.
Yeah, Dad, you go back, and I know we used to talk about Jordan all the time and why you loved him, and like Jeremy Roenick too, and Walter Payton, like Chicago lore. Those guys, in a lot of sense, didn't give an inch to anybody, ever. You can't. I can remember 5 plays this year from LeBron taking plays off. Like, I can't tell you one time. I go back, and I'm sure you guys can't. Same thing. Where Jordan, you're like, he didn't bring it today. You know what? He just didn't look like he may have a bad game, but it wasn't like he wasn't locked in.
I mean, it even went as far as Kuzma pushing LeBron to guard somebody on a play this year.
Yeah,
it's like get out on the shooter, close out.
You would never. That's the rarefied air we're talking about. And we can even start to get LeBron, Jordan stuff. I'm cool with that if we want to go that route. But that's the rarefied air. I'll give LeBron 2. LeBron is, you can't knock the stats and the results and the gifts and what he did to the dude. He did something to Boston too in Game 6 of their first title run. They were on the ropes, and he went into Terminator mode against them. The eyes, you could just tell he's got some of that Jordan killer in him. He just doesn't have it all the time.
Right, it's not consistent.
That's the difference. Right. Jordan, like Tim said on our first or second episode of the show, Jordan would want to go home, take the ball from you, kick your dog, and, rip your heart out and then smile at you. Like, maybe not kick your dog. But yeah, that's what he wanted to do. And he wouldn't stop until he did that. Like,
and mind you, gentlemen, that's on both ends of the floor.
Yeah.
That's just not offensively.
They don't talk enough about
this guy. You talk about a great athlete here, boys. Just defensively would wear you out. He played both ends of the floor. This guy
never gave an inch, and it wasn't like.
And there was a quote with Larry Bird after that game that Tony was referring to. Larry Bird said that's not Michael Jordan. That's God dressed as Michael Jordan.
Isn't that something?
Yep.
That's quite a high compliment, coming from
in the Garden.
The greats.
In the Garden. Who's seen Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, Maravich, Oscar Robertson, Pistol Pete, all the greats go back. Isaiah, like I'm forgetting a lot of these guys. I know I am. Dominique, Dr. J,
Kareem.
Yep. This
Kareem
dude.
Magic.
This dude was the one who lit up Bird and made Bird go, oh.
And I don't even know if he hit a 3 that game.
Did.
That might have been early in his career. He evolved his game.
You know what, Tony? I think this was his second year, because he broke his foot early in his second year, I think, and then the Chicago Bulls doctors advised against him coming back.
Yep.
He came back for like the last, I don't know, maybe 15 games, and I think they snuck into the playoffs because of him, and that's when he lit up the Celtics for like 63 or something. So
another great quote from Jordan was, coming back from the injury, Jerry Reinsdorf owned the team, still does. Jordan wanted to come back really bad, and Jerry Reinsdorf asked him, okay, well, what if you get hurt? Pretty much was the argument. And Jordan says, I want to play. He goes, well, something like, Jerry goes, okay, let me give you a situation, Michael. If I had 5 Tylenol for you, or 6 Tylenol, one of them was coated in cyanide, would you take one of them? And Jordan said, how bad's my headache?
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
It was something. I think I'm paraphrasing the story, but that's kind of what it was. It was like, well, how bad I want to freaking play. Like, I will die on the court, literally, probably die on the court.
And a lot of people forget that I just looked this up. He had 49 points the first game in that series, 63 in the second.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable.
And the Celtics are no slouch. They were a great defensive team.
Yep.
The Celtics at that time.
Yeah, people forget how good McHale was. You go back and watch McHale. My God, that dude had some of the best post moves in NBA history. Like, he was absolutely unreal on the offensive end.
I mean, they had Danny Ainge, Larry Bird, Rick Carlisle, Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Bill Walton. Like, this team was absolutely stacked.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and what I call my 3 alphas, you got Jordan, Roenick, and Payton. You guys are absolutely right. Never gave a minute. Guys take plays off in sports. These guys never took a minute off, played their hearts out. Jeremy Roenick was quoted at one point saying he was coming back from an injury, and he came back early. And they said, why are you doing it? I believe he said, I would bleed for this team. Mm-hmm. That's how much he loved the Blackhawks.
Yep.
Special players, no doubt about it.
Yep. Agreed. And Yeah, well, I want to touch on that thread of conversations you just mentioned, Dad, about bleeding for the organization, because that's going to be part of what we kind of get into with where the NBA and maybe sports in general have kind of gone with free agency and the loyalty aspect that's not there. And I think it's on both sides too. We'll dig into that more, but I'm going to stick with Bulls because, we're in a rough patch right now. I mean, Tim and I are very pessimistic about the direction of the team and what's going to happen. So we harken back. It's kind of like we live in the 85 Bears a lot for us.
Right.
It's reliving the dynasty because it makes us smile. We go back to the happy days, right? Not the dark days. And it's just they three-peated twice. Golden State can't didn't three-peat. The Heat didn't three-peat. Like the Lakers did once, but they couldn't get to the fourth. So they could have won 8 titles if Jordan hadn't retired for 2 years. I legitimately think they could have won 8 titles had Jordan not retired.
They could have won more titles if Jerry Krause wouldn't have broken them up, because there was a time when Jerry Krause felt slighted, I believe, because he thought that Jordan was given too much accolades for the Bulls winning all the championships and him not enough. And he once said, I could build this team without Jordan. How did that work out?
It didn't.
It didn't. Even with Pippen, even with Kukoc, minus Jordan, they couldn't get over the hump. They didn't have that man, that guy who knew how to manage a team on the court. He was the general on the court. He knew when to dish the ball. He knew when to take over a game when he needed to. And I think the other players had so much respect for him that kind of scenario could happen.
Yep. And Pippen walked off the court that one time when Kukoc got the final shot. I remember that. Jordan would have never done that. You can say
absolutely not.
The thing about Jordan for me, and this is what also separates him from like Kobe or LeBron, Jordan never did anything, in my opinion, to what word am I looking for? To negatively impact his team. It was always about winning. He may have gone about it the wrong way, like punching Steve Kerr that one time, but or challenging people, but it was always to make you better. It wasn't about him. It was about winning. Like Kobe.
He never aired the dirty laundry.
No, Kobe threw a ball at Phil Jackson when he was on crutches. One time.
Another story to bring up too, which kind of relates back to Jerry Krause, was he was so high on Tony Kukoc, coming out of Croatia, and when Scotty and Michael played on the Dream Team, they played Croatia. They literally took all their anger out from Jerry Krause onto Tony Kukoc that day, and I think they literally smothered him, and he only had like 4 points or something like that, and shot 2 for 10, and had a bunch of turnovers. It was incredible because Jordan and Pippen, honestly, they just knew how to motivate a team.
Absolutely.
Their competitive nature was second to none. The way they read passing lanes and the way they played defense, no one plays defense like that anymore. They don't read the passing lanes. Like, it was unbelievable the way them.
Check this out. Here we go. Here's some quotes for you. Here's Pippen. I wanted the whole world to see us go face to face. I would have ordered Krause a big screen TV. What else did they say? It was just that quote, and then I wanted to shut him down and embarrass him. I can't put Krause on the court. I shook Kukoc's hand before and after the game. There's no bad between us. Then he said, now I guess he's not ready for NBA competition. Like, that's not like that's a crazy story. Like,
isn't that nuts?
Yeah. I guess.
I mean, they used to call Tony Kukoc the Croatian sensation.
Yeah,
that's how highly he was regarded internationally.
Yeah, he was incredible. He was such a talent. And I don't think he was used properly by Phil in a sense either. He should have been used more as a point guard.
Beat me to the punch, man. I totally agree with you.
Harper was solid, but Kukoc should have been a creator and a passer. I think they could have been even better if Kukoc was setting guys up instead of just relegated to being a scorer. He was
bringing up the ball. Of course,
What
anybody on that team, if you notice, was bringing the ball up the court, which was kind of an unheard of thing. You got the Lakers. It was always Magic bringing the ball up the court. You know, DJ for the Celtics, always bringing the ball up the court. Well, here you have the Bulls. You got Pippen bringing the ball up the court. You got B.J. Armstrong bringing the call. John Paxson, Kerr. You've got Pippen. You've got, you know, all these different guys. Kukoc bringing the ball up the court, which kind of, I think, threw teams off too.
Yep. But
Tony, who is your out of all the championship Bulls teams? Who is your favorite and why?
I think my favorite, I forget which championship it was when they beat Cleveland the first time, I believe. And it was that shot of who is that guy who was guarding him?
Craig Elo.
Yes, thank you. Going down in a heap in the corner, and you just hear Johnny Red Kerr, you know, sudden Sunday, sudden the Bulls win, sudden Sunday. It was that year. I think that was my favorite of all championships. Some of the ones too with Dennis Rodman, because I think he was very underrated. He was unbelievable. The amount of time that he could hit the floor with his feet and get back up in the air again, you know, to get the rebound was minuscule, man. That guy was a freak rebounder that was absolutely incredible. Those were fun times too. It was very, very entertaining.
Yeah, and they had to, like, there's that 30 for 30 that's coming out. When is it coming out next year? They're going to do it on the Bulls. And like, there's quotes that they, you know, Pippen and Jordan weren't getting along, and they didn't know where the hell Rodman was sometimes. That they had to, like, he was such a loose cannon that they had to reel him in. It's going to be, just thinking back too, like all the social media crap nowadays. A player goes to the bathroom and you hear about it. Yes. Imagine this team. They were like the freaking Beatles in a social media era.
For sure, yeah.
Imagine you hear a story, like we heard the story about Bobby Portis punching out Nico Mirotic. That went nuts, right? Imagine a story of Jordan punching Steve Kerr.
Right.
And what that would have, like, done to social media. Is Jordan a bad team? Like, the narratives that may have been created about him that happened during that time.
His gambling addiction too, or issues, you know. Yeah. That would have been a major, even more of a story, you know. That's why I think that I don't mean to cut you off, Tony. That's why I think LeBron is so impressive that he's able to stay out of the limelight, you know, and protect his persona and his reputation, just because he lives in this era, you know, and just everything hits social media. I mean, with Jordan, it's like he did everything wrong, like off the court. I mean, he stayed up until 3 a.m. and played. He was gambling and drinking and smoking, like he's smoking a cigar in a Porsche on the way to the game. And he gets out and he says, who's guarding me? Good luck. You know, like.
Absolutely. I think that you guys brought up a very good point about them being like the Beatles. And they were, because it was an event. Everywhere they went, they sold it out. I don't care what, you know, stadium they were in. They sold it out. And everybody watching on TV would just go, what's going to happen? It was unpredictable. And that, I think, was the magic of the teams, like with Rodman and Pippen, Jordan, and the rest of the Jordanairs, you might say, is the unpredictability. And they were the rock stars of that time.
Yep. And you hear, like, I work with my boss at Stadium is a big Knicks fan. Hates Jordan. Hates him.
Wow.
But he's
the biggest John Starks fan, huh?
No. What I'm saying is he hates
Good
him
name to
because
bring up.
what he did to the Knicks, but he respects him. That's the
Right.
thing about Jordan. Like what he did to your teams, like you don't like him for, but you respect.
The same with me. Like I'm a Packers fan. I have the ultimate amount of respect for Walter Payton. You know, like he was an absolute monster. You know, and
Yeah.
he gave everything on the field.
Yep.
I hated him, but I loved
Yeah.
him at the same time.
Exactly. And I could say the same thing about Favre. God, that guy, he was nails, man. You know, he would play through pain, his thumb dislocated and whatever, the toughness of this dude. And he was like the guy at the final buzzer. You wanted the ball in his hands because he was going to pull the game out. And you got to
Yep.
respect a guy like that.
Yeah. And final Jordan story before we move on to like NBA landscape is I remember I think Bill Wennington told this one where they were in Vancouver and Vancouver sucked. That was when the Grizzlies were in Canada and they were a bad team, and the Bulls were losing to them. And they were down, I don't know, double digits in the fourth quarter. And Michael Jordan in the huddle said pretty much, well, enough of this shit. Let's go out and win the fucking game. And he did. Like, enough of this crap. That was pretty like, or I've got one more for you. Michael Jordan was such a competitor. He used to bet on the donut races. What he used to do is he used to find out who was going to win the donut race, and he'd lay money down to his teammates.
Oh, my.
But he wouldn't let anybody onto it because he'd lose occasionally, but he'd make his money back. So he didn't want anybody to get in on. I forget where I heard that, but he didn't want anybody to get in on like what was going on. This is how this guy's wired. It's like
an absolute winning addict.
Any edge he could get.
No. That's why there's never going to be another him. Unless you find me somebody who's that competitive and has that amount of skill. No. This dude was ruthless. Absolutely ruthless.
Let me ask you guys this. Let me ask you guys something. This might bridge into the next segment a little bit. But with today's rules in the NBA, how many points, how do you think Jordan would do?
40 at least.
With today's rules, man.
40 at least. At least 40. Then you count rules and also him developing a three-point shot.
Right.
We talked about this with Ross in our second episode. You're telling me the greatest player of all time that locked himself into a gym, developed a fadeaway, one of the most unguardable shots and moves in the history of the NBA. You're telling me that guy wouldn't have been able to develop his three ball if that's where the league was going? Bullshit.
Right.
Bullshit.
I think it's definitely 40 plus. I mean, especially if you're talking about his early years when he just took over the game and wasn't really, because you think about the older years where he learned to kind of get his teammates involved a little bit more. In his early years, he was just going out trying to destroy you.
Yeah, he averaged 37 points a game one year on 53% from the field.
Exactly. So he averaged 37 points a game during, the hand checking rules and
the bad most physical time in the NBA.
Yep.
Where, think about it, the ticky-tack fouls today, he might be scoring 50 points a game.
Yep. Free throws.
The way he used to go in there fearless.
He would have learned what he could do. He used to put his hand on guys' hips to shift them in the post. He learned he could do that. If he was guarding you, he'd put your hand on your hip and he'd direct you where he wanted you to go. He learned. He would have learned a way in today's league to draw fouls and develop his three-point shot, which would have gotten him more points. Yeah, hands down 40. I would say at least 40 a game. On efficiency, at close to 50% from the field, he would have killed these guys.
Absolutely.
He would have killed them.
Not to mention he's playing 40 minutes a game. Unlike these other players nowadays. There's only a few times where he didn't play 82 games.
Yep, and didn't take days off. Imagine this dude.
80. There's no load management with this guy.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like this maybe that's why Tony doesn't enjoy watching the game nowadays.
Yeah,
just because people
part
are
of it.
load management. You tune into a Saturday night game with the Lakers playing the Spurs, and LeBron's taking game off because of load management. It's just, and then if he plays, he's playing 35 minutes a game. It's not like you get a full 40.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear where this is a good transition segment in the NBA, where it is now. I don't want to hear that he is worn out. Jordan got his ass kicked by the literally got his ass kicked by the Pistons, was abused and thrown to the floor. He went to three straight finals, and then three more straight finals, like in a very physical era, didn't take games off. I don't want to hear about fatigue because these guys have better nutrition now. They have better personal trainers. There's more science out there to help them get better. Jordan didn't have any of that.
Right.
None. Right. So, yeah, I think nowadays, I'll be honest, man, I'm going to go old school. I think these NBA players are soft as baby shit. Seriously. With what they complain about, they're constant bitching to the refs all the time about anything, the flopping. Like, I still love the NBA. I will also admit it's hard for me to watch sometimes. What's going on? Like, just the brand of basketball sometimes. It's just like, I agree. This is trash.
I think, guys, in the old days, Jordan's era and everything, here I go with my old crotchety guy again, is that Jordan evolved to the NBA in what it was doing and the rules. Nowadays, I think the players want the NBA to evolve to them.
Yeah.
And what they're doing. And I think that's where it's all kind of mixed and changed. And, Tim brought up a great point. If I'm paying $200 for a seat to watch a game, I don't want to see LeBron sitting for that long. You pay to watch the stars, man, during a game.
Yep, 100%. And where, like the loyalty aspect of, players and teams, I understand why free agency was created. And the freedom of choice and the power of choice for players to decide where they want to go. I 100% understand it, and I would agree because maybe a player got into a bad situation, and you can't pick your situation. Same time, like free agency, and LeBron started this entire thing, the super team era. He what do I want to say? Not manipulated, but he changed the landscape of how teams are built, and not in a good way. It's more about now who you know, what power you have,
what agent you have,
what relationships you have. Like, you can be a good drafting team, but if you're in a small market, these guys are leaving. They're going to go to greener pastures to a bigger market, like Anthony Davis forcing his way out. Like,
Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's the next one.
Yep. So it's like these small market teams can't compete with these big markets and these agents and the power and the influence that, LeBron's agent just had. It was like, yeah, we're going to force a trade to the Lakers. That's what's going to happen. And it happened. It's like, it's just hard to fathom that for me.
Does it matter to you guys? Let me ask you this. Does it matter to you guys? Back in the day, you could guarantee that, if you bought a Jordan jersey, he was going to be with the team a long time. Peyton, Roenick eventually left, but not by his...
not by choice.
He was forced out. Nowadays, does it for the guy, the person who's buying a jersey, if you've got Rose on the back, does it matter if it says the Bulls on the front or another team on the front or whatever? Because these guys, switch like a revolving door anymore.
I think it absolutely does, and that's why it was hard. It was very hard for me to see Rose leave because he was like the knight of the city. He was. Joe and I, grew up watching his highlight clips, and when he got drafted to the Bulls, we pretty much threw a party at his apartment. And we watched every single training camp of his and preseason. Yeah, it hurt. Youngest MVP, and then he gets traded.
Right.
He gets traded for Robin Lopez, which it's sad. But to my point, it's even harder to see someone force their way out of a situation like
True.
Anthony Davis. And that's what makes me feel that maybe the players do have too much power. If they demand a trade and they want to go to a specific organization, that really hinders the organization on what type of value they get back. It's already it already hurts enough to part ways with your best player or one of your best players, but when you're not going to get the value back or the maximum value back, that really hurts hurts your fan base and your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And Rob Pelinka is the general manager of the Lakers right now. Rob Pelinka, was he Kobe's agent or no? Do you remember, Tim? Like he was a big time agent though in the NBA, right? Pelinka.
He was a huge agent. Yeah.
I forget who
I think he was. I think he did represent Kobe, if I'm not mistaken.
So,
because he said something about Kobe meeting like Heath Ledger before or after Batman was released, and obviously that was bullshit because he died before it was released.
So Rob Pelinka is a general manager of the Lakers. Rob Pelinka was an agent. So now you've got agents running teams and negotiating with other agents. Like, to me, GMs should be talent evaluators. They should be personnel people. You're bringing agents in to run teams. Now, granted, Pelinka's kind of screwed some stuff up, and it may blow up in his face, but I just don't like... There should be a balance between power of organizations and the players' union. And the thing about the NBA is it wheels more to the players now, and they're starting to see it because one guy can influence an entire team. And unlike football or hockey or baseball, where it takes an entire team, basketball, one guy can take you from bottom rung to potential playoff team. That's the problem here. It's like one guy can influence so much in the league. And I don't like where it's going. I hope like this new breed like Zion, John Morant, some of these young guys, I hope there's a lot more loyalty to their teams. And if not, like I want to see these dudes go after each other too.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only way I want to see you play together is all-star and dream teams. I don't want to see you joining up and creating super teams, man. That's just no.
Joe, sadly, nothing's going to change until Adam Silver steps in and makes some type of judgment against this, or then it's gonna be like this for.
Or maybe he will, but he's too much of he's a player's owner.
He is.
I'm sorry, not owner. Players commissioner. He's a players commissioner, which I'm all for. But you also have to have hardline stances on stuff. Enough of this crap. Stop tampering and the circumventing the salary cap and free agency and all this stuff. It's the NBA. I think their ratings went down 6% this year.
That's quite a bit.
That's because LeBron went west. Gotcha. Playoff ratings were down this year. The finals ratings were down this year. So, like, my generation still loves the NBA. But I think for you, and I understand your point, I still love the NBA, but it's irritating sometimes.
You know what the big sea change was, guys, for the NBA and most sports? Is I think video gaming and the way you video game and how it got so realistic. The scoring in a video game is outrageous, and there's almost no defense. So if you're marketing to that demographic and that group, you would do everything you can to increase scoring, to me. And that's the new NBA. And I think they're marketing it to that generation who grew up with video games and who really changed the face of sports, to me.
That's interesting. I never thought about it from that perspective.
I hadn't either. No, honestly. And you think about today's generation, I think maybe even Joe and I would be included in this. Like our attention spans, let's just be honest about it. It's shorter than, generations past. And we want that instant gratification,
Absolutely.
So we want teams like the Warriors and the Rockets to come up and down the court, just kick it to the corner and shoot threes, and score in transition. High octane offense. I don't know if that low post kick it down to Hakeem and the dream shake is gonna, really excite too many people nowadays, unfortunately.
Right.
But that's kind of the game that we grew up on, which I have appreciation for, the triangle offense and everything. I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
I think you're spot on. I think with the Warriors, there's a beauty to how they play, though. Off ball movement, they're a good passing team. It's like some of the other squads, though, that are so ISO oriented, that just bog down the offense and don't play, like the Rockets, for example. High octane offense, don't play a lick of defense. Really. Now, Harden can give a shit about defense. Just doesn't even try. And I think that's part of the problem too, is there's such a premium on scoring, but on the defensive side of things, Toronto was a really good defensive team, and yeah, KD went out and Clay went out, but they stymied the Warriors in a lot of spots, and defense and boards and that stuff still wins. It still wins in the league. So it can't be all about just guys jacking threes. That's bad. Ball movement, inside outside game. Balanced scoring, hitting the glass, closing out possessions by rebounding. That the little things still win games.
Right. Make the other team work for it.
Yep.
Tire them out, by defending them.
Yeah, because really, honestly, dude, like we joke, but sometimes all you have to do is watch the fourth quarter of an NBA game. Screw the first three. Like, how many times have we seen runs happen? Like, a team goes up by 10 in the third, but once the fourth quarter happens, the better team turns it on and they decide they're going to win the game. Like, it used to be a war. It used to be 4 quarters, we're going at each other, back and forth, back and forth. Now it's which team decides to turn it on in the fourth quarter and wake up. Right. That's kind of how it feels sometimes with LeBron or whoever. It's like, oh, LeBron's coasting for 3 quarters. Oh, fourth quarter. Oh, you need me to win the game? Okay, cool. I'm going to score 14.
And there's a difference between, regular season LeBron versus postseason LeBron.
Yep.
And postseason LeBron is something that would be comparable to Jordan potentially, but not regular season LeBron. So there's a lot of comparisons like that between, players just taking games off or, the load management thing. I just think we need to kind of move something back. The needle moves that need to move back towards the 90s a little bit more. Maybe we need to implement, the hand checking rule again or something. You need more physical contact. And I understand you don't want people, attitudes raising and people jumping into crowds and fighting fans and things like that. But I mean, the game has just gotten way too soft in the last.
It's a video game, man. It's a video game.
Yep. Yeah. And it's good too. Like rivalries and physical play, it's engaging. Those Bulls-Knicks games, those Bulls-Pacers games, when Vernon Maxwell and Jordan went face to face, I want more of that. I want these guys not to like each other on the court. Stop being friends.
I agree with that.
Where's your competitive edge?
Yeah.
You can be brothers off the court, but when we're, if Tim and I are on different teams, man, I'm going to go at you. It's just like, where is that competitive fire and that edge? That's what I liked about this playoffs.
If you're friends, you know where to draw the line.
Yeah.
Like when it's competition, Joe, we played against each other.
Yeah.
And we didn't take it easy on each other at all.
No.
It was physical.
To me, that's out of respect.
Of course. You got to respect each other. You shake hands in the beginning, and that's where the line's drawn. And then it's, you're not holding anything back. It's fully competitive. You're trying to win the ball game. At the end, you shake hands. That's when the line is drawn again. And then, I mean, you just have to leave it all on the court. You can't be helping. I wouldn't help Joe up if he felt. I mean, if it's a serious injury, yes. Like KD,
right? Just
like Kyle Lowry had enough respect for KD, just to. help him off the court or tell the fans not to, applaud when he's hurt on the ground, which was inexcusable,
Right.
But if he's on the ground and you knocked him down, fair game.
Yeah.
It's
I
all
agree.
about you got to leave it all on the
If we
court.
go into the hole, I'm not necessarily trying to hurt you, but I'm not going to let you get a bucket. Like, I'm going to not put you down, but I may give you a hard foul. Like, I'm going to prevent you from getting – I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm not going to let you have an easy bucket. I'm going to make you realize that it's not easy coming in here, or on the perimeter. I'm going to get up on you a little bit. I'm going to give you some friction on defense. I'm going to give you some physicality.
It's not a free lane. It's not a free lane to the basket, man.
The NBA is so skilled right now with ball handlers and shot creators. If you could bring, like Tim said, a little bit of that 90s flair back, a little bit of that rivalry, a little bit of that physicality, a little bit of that, I won't say war because it's not war, but, a little bit of that.
That edge.
Edge. Yeah. I love it. Like in the playoffs, like when Philly and Boston were going at it in the regular season and somebody shoved Embiid down. Those two teams didn't like each other. Mm-hmm. Loved it. Hell yeah.
Makes for great TV.
Back.
Yes, it does.
I'm not saying that I want guys to hurt each other, but I want these dudes to not act like hired guns. Right. I want to have loyalty to their team and to their organization and vice versa. I want these teams to have loyalty to their players. And I want some of that back. It's missing. It really is, because it just feels empty sometimes. It's just, there's no...
Like you're going through the motions, and like the thing that I miss, players like Gary Payton, that like weren't afraid to, yap in your ear when they stole the ball from you or get up in your chest, on a defensive possession and just really just, leave it all on the defensive end. There's not enough play. Even Kawhi, I mean, maybe it had to do something with his, he had something with maybe his knee or his something with his legs, but he took plays off in the finals, and he didn't leave it all on the floor. Gary Payton and these type of alpha defenders, that's like an extinct breed nowadays.
We need more.
That's a good point.
Like Patrick Beverly. I want more of those guys.
For sure. Right. I mean, he's one of the only ones nowadays.
Who's not going to give you an inch, zero space. He'll give you respect, but you're not. You're gonna battle for however long I'm going to be on the court when you're there. Mm-hmm. I want some of that back. I realize we're not going to get all of it back, but give me some, just some. I'll still watch. But I think for you, Dad, I think that's one of the reasons why you're turning away from it is because of things like that.
Right. And I think, do you guys think it's because the incentives that are in contracts are so big now for scoring? I mean, what's the incentives for defending?
Right.
Stealing the ball, that kind of things. Are there incentives for that? If there were incentives for that, I think you'd see more defense.
Potentially. I mean, they so when they negotiate contracts, I know field goal percentage is brought up. That's why some of these guys don't take half-court shots at halftime or end of games that don't matter, because it'll affect their three-point percentage. And there's no way. And then when an agent goes to the team and says, well, they attempted 5, half-court shots, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter to the teams. They're going off of what they see on the stat line. So that could be it too. That really could be some of it as well, is what the agents and the teams are incentivizing in terms of scoring, because that's a premium, and that's where the league is going, is shot making. It's less about your defensive stoppers as it is being able to create your own offense.
And maybe it's just too fast, fast pace of a game nowadays, where it's just back and forth so much. It's just bad possessions of basketball where a three is taken, with less than 15 seconds on the shot clock, and you're back on defense again. Maybe these teams are just worn out. I don't know.
Yeah, it's potentially, yeah. I mean, but still, they get 2 days off in between games and rest days and all this stuff. Call me old school, whatever. I mean, it's crazy thing is we're only 31 and we're talking like we're 50, Like, honestly.
60.
But yeah, it's frustrating because you want the product seems to me to be better, and it's just I don't want to see James Harden flopping. I appreciate his skill offensively, but the fact that he just like jumps into people to draw fouls, it's just annoying. It's like I don't want the NBA to become that. That's not
free throws are not entertaining. Let's be honest.
Sure.
Manipulating the referees to call fouls for you and yelling and screaming to get a foul and flopping, stop it. Start fining these guys. Start suspending them for flopping.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you stop it. You know?
Right.
And, I think this is a really good conversation because it's not like, oh, you know, we don't like offense and we just want no, it's not that.
Not true.
No, I want to see
so lopsided right now.
Yeah, and it's just like
no balance.
No, there's no loyalty, and these guys are teaming up with each other, and it's just like who do you represent when you're on the court? Do you represent your brand? Do you represent your team? Do you represent your posse outside, like the Banana Boys, like Chris Paul, Wade, and LeBron? All that trio there.
LeBron doesn't like the word posse, so we should use it.
I'm sorry, I can't use that word.
Oh, okay.
Your homies, your friends. But yeah, we saw it in the when Rajon Rondo punched Chris Paul. LeBron didn't know
that.
Rajon Rondo.
I think he spit on him.
Oh, he spit on him. Okay, but LeBron went to go protect Chris Paul, who's not on his team. He didn't go to protect his teammate. So where's your loyalty? Yep. Is it with your friend? Is it with your teammate?
Because when you're on the court or on the field or wherever you are on the ice, that's your competition.
Yeah.
You can be friends after the game.
Yeah.
During the game,
100%.
You gotta dominate, man. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we brought it up earlier how close Michael was to Oakley.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the 80s and the 90s. It's not like he took it easy on Oakley. Or Oakley took it easy on MJ. I mean, they almost, you know, went blows at each other, you know, a couple times.
I would even say Jordan and Barkley, close friends.
Yeah.
Close friends. But boy, when you got them on the court against one another, there was going to be some hot sauce going on between those two guys. They wanted to win.
Yep.
Winning.
And that's engaging. That's engaging to people when you see that. Like, I don't want fights. I don't want mucked up bad boys basketball. I don't want dudes throwing each other to the ground. I just want a little bit more edge to these guys.
Right.
Like shit talk, get in each other's face a little bit. Like that type of stuff. That'll draw people back in, and maybe some of the older generation back in a little bit. But I really liked where this went. I think it was a good conversation. And as always, before we wrap it, we got one final question. And it's not going to be sports related. If you could, because you've got a bunch of guitars in the background.
Yes.
And I know you play guitar.
Not very well, but I try.
All right. If you had a chance to play Living or Dead with a musician, Living or Dead, up on stage one time for one song, who would it be and what song would you play with them?
It would be Billy Joel. I'd like to be a guitarist for Billy Joel, and the song would be You May Be Right. I might be crazy, but it might be a lunatic you're looking for.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Why that song? Why him and why that song?
It's just I'll tell you what, it's just part of me, I guess. I like it because it speaks to me. And a lot of people thought when I was younger, I think of myself as kind of creative. They didn't know what to do with me in school. They thought I was crazy. And I think that song speaks to me, and it just might be a lunatic. You may be right. I might be crazy. Hey, but it just might be a lunatic you're looking for. That's where I'm at.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow. I love that.
I thought you would go Stevie Ray Vaughan, maybe Jimi Hendrix, or somebody, Van Halen, maybe somebody like that. So Billy Joel's an interesting answer. That's awesome.
Billy Joel, best, my favorite album of all time, 52nd Street. Billy Joel.
Yeah.
On vinyl.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you coming on, Dad. This is a great conversation. We're definitely gonna we'll have you back on again, man. This is great.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolute privilege being on with the Hardwood Hooligans, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. No problem. So this has been episode 5 of Hardwood Hooligans.